Now that actually happened. I had to address a similar situation like that with my mother-in-law. It's funny there, but it won't funny again. And as soon as I left, she called my husband and was like, "Do you know your wife said this and this and this to me?" He called me. I said, "I did tell her that." I said, "I actually did tell her that because I was defending my husband." But she was like, "You can't," pretty much was saying, "But that's my son." And I'm like, "But that's my husband. And I feel like I should defend him." But the mom was like, "That's my son."
Right.
So I can kind of roll with it
That's
however I
so
want
like
to.
he was here with me first.
Right,
you
pretty
came along.
much. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Kingdom Women Talk, where we encourage, validate, and empower others to do life. Today we're going to be talking about in-laws matter. They do matter. That's why we're talking about this. So many people discount, I was going to say dislike, but maybe I should say that too. Dislike or discount their in-laws. Why? I don't
That's
really
a
have an
loaded
issue
question.
with my in-laws. I'm trying to think. I really didn't have an issue with my in-laws.
I didn't either.
I didn't really.
Nor did I.
Yeah, I didn't really have. So, what has kept the? I think for me, it was communication that kept it. I was intentional about communicating. I was intentional, about making sure I celebrate birthdays and holidays and things like that with them. It takes some work to have a good relationship with your in-laws. But there's a lot of people that don't don't deal with their in-laws.
We made it at a point like if my in-laws seemed like they was always cooking out. So, made it a point even to bring my mom along, or if we were having something, just like when Ray and I got married, we got married by the Justice of the Peace, and my mother-in-law, my father-in-law were there. Nothing fancy, but they always were willing to participate when whatever we had going on. And so yeah, I was blessed with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law still touches bases with me.
That's good.
I still consider her my mother-in-law,
Yeah.
touch bases with her
That's good.
from time to time, see how she's doing,
That's good. That's good. What's been the glue to keep your in-laws, yourself and your in-laws in good standing?
Actually, my mother-in-law considered me to be a daughter to her. So that was the relationship that we had. As a matter of fact, I was one of her caretakers. So me and my husband partnered, taking care of her when she was ill. And I think that just being a part of her health care, so to speak, being there from the beginning of the situation all the way through the end to her transitioning, it just evolved into that type relationship, and she trusted me to handle things for her when she wasn't able to. Just those type of dynamics really matter when you are integral about yourself and you respect the role that they have.
That's good right there.
When you respect that, and you don't, cross boundaries, which she never did. And I never did that to her either. That plays a big part.
So Two things that you said that I think we hear often. In-laws crossing boundaries. You got mama's boys who insert their mamas into everything. And then it's vice versa. You got daddy's girls who insert their dads into everything. So I think it's important that we talk about that because we don't want to be that.
Right. You're right about that, though.
Like, we don't want to be that,
that's
right?
true. Yeah.
We don't want to be
don't.
that.
Right.
Like, I'm sure we want to have good relationships as the in-law because we're going to be future in-laws, right? So we want to have good relationships without being meddling,
Absolutely.
meddling moms or,
Right.
and be disrespected. But I think we hear all the time where the relationships are bad between spouses and in-laws. And I think it comes down to respect.
Yeah.
Do roles shift when marriage take place? Or do roles shift when girlfriends take place? When does the role shift? If it's son and mom or if it's daughter and dad, when does the role shift and the significant other takes the higher priority over the parents? Is it dating, serious dating, or is it marriage?
Well, if you're gonna go according to what the Bible says, it happens when you're married, because that's when that covenant is made. That's when you leave, or the male is to leave his wife and cleave. His mother and family or father, and cleave to his wife. That's what biblically it says.
Right.
I think that it does begin during the dating stages.
Yeah, because
somewhat.
that's weird to cut that off.
Right.
Like, you, my number one girl, and then all of a sudden, sorry. Right, sorry, mom. Sorry, dad. You at the bottom of the list. That would be hard for people to be able to understand that.
Right.
So what are you thinking? You thinking the same? Does it start relationship-wise when something starts getting serious, or does it start in marriage?
I think it should start relationship-wise, and not as a meddling parent, but as a sage parent who's been on the dating scene. The years have changed, but dating is dating. And if you have parents that have been married for quite some time, and especially if you have a young woman that's a daddy's girl, of course she's going to go to her daddy for advice. Or if you have a son that's a mama's boy, of course he wants his mom's approval on whom he's picking to be his wife. And I think as parents who, like, I'm a mother-in-law, there's a fine line we have to walk.
Yeah.
Whereas our sons may want us to talk to their wives. That might not be my responsibility to do that, because my daughter-in-law has a mother. And my daughter-in-law may feel like I'm interfering, or that has created, why you got to tell your mama everything? Because they're not looking at it in the sense of, well, I'm talking to her because I'm trying to get her advice, and then I'm asking her, maybe you and her can talk. Not every wife perceives that what her husband is trying to do in garnering a relationship between mother and daughter-in-law, if it hasn't been established during dating.
Right.
And so you have some mother-in-laws, I don't like her. Well, you don't even know her. I just don't like her.
Yeah.
If she's different than what the mother-in-law is used to, what the son has been bringing home.
Or sometimes they just don't like her because they just don't.
They just don't.
They don't like her for the son, or don't. It could be anything
Right.
they don't like. So then, how do we? I think it takes balance to be able to do that, and it takes seeing outside of ourselves to be able to do that. Because you're right, we do have to welcome someone else into the home, into the relationship. So if it's like me and my sons, then when they get married, I'll have to welcome someone in, which means I
Right.
have to then be intentional about building a relationship. Now, old school of thinking will say, I sit back and chill. It's up to them to build a relationship with me. Y'all think that's right or wrong?
I think it's both ways.
I think it's both ways.
Yeah, because of relationship building is two-way, which means
It's
that
reciprocal.
just as much as I would
Yeah.
expect that she would call or he would call, she would call me, then I would then also need to be intentional about calling her, building a relationship with her.
And it also gives you an opportunity to really see, because let's be honest here, when we first start dating, the person that we are hoping to marry, we put on our best face. We put
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
we put on
Yeah,
our
yeah.
that
Yeah,
that facade of who we are. You know, the nice person with manners and
yeah.
this and that. But then when we get married, sometimes that button that switches and it's like, my mother-in-law's nosy, or she get on my nerves, or.
But what if that's the case though, Sheila?
But
How do we handle that?
what I'm leading to is when you said you were intentional about reaching out to your daughter-in-law, it gives you a chance to get a front row seat of, should I keep going or should I back off?
Well, you should never back off, in my opinion. I don't think you should ever back off. I think
If your daughter-in-law isn't reciprocal to your,
I just still think that we shouldn't back off because we still have to cultivate a relationship. You know, we still have to. In my opinion, I just think that when my sons get married, you know, even if they're not receptive, I'm not gonna stop calling them. I'm not gonna stop, calling them on their birthdays or, Mother's Day or things like that. I'm not gonna stop doing those things even though they're not receptive, because at some point something has to click. Something has to break. Because I get it. You may be thinking, this is weird. Maybe they ain't came from that, right? Maybe they've not had that before. So it maybe seem weird or off-putting, but I want them to see that my intention, being intentional about this, is genuine. And kind of going back to what you said about your mother-in-law, once she realized that you were genuine and that she could trust you, that relationship blossomed. So I think for me, Sheila, it's like I feel like if I slack off or if I stop doing it just because I got a side eye, I felt like they were ungrateful or didn't want it or whatever the case, some type of negativity, I think I still need to push forward. Just so I could see, just so I can show there's no motive here.
Yeah.
Right. There's no motive here. It's just, and this is who I am. You need to see, because maybe they've never had that before. Now relationships are different. People come from different walks of life, different backgrounds and different experiences. And so I think for me, I think we should just keep going, because I'm trying to think that my mother-in-law, she kept going, and I think our relationship is better today than it has. It progresses year over year, of course, but we've been through some stuff. It's been 23 years of in-lawing. No way, it's been long, 28 years of in-law, and I'm talking about 28 years of in-law, so it's been a long time. All right, so what happens when the in-laws there's some mean in-laws out there. There's some rude ones, and they treat the future or the current boyfriend, girlfriend, Mrs., Mr., they treat them bad. Treat them harshly. Should they stick with it? But say I'm not talking, I ain't dealing with your mama. I'm not dealing with your dad. Don't ask me.
Well, I think when it comes to placing yourself in a situation where you're being, treated in a way that you shouldn't be, that's not warranted, of course. It's not anything that you instigated or did or, reacted in a certain type of way to them, causing that type of reaction back.
Right.
So you do have to take accountability if that's happening. But yeah, I wouldn't advise to place yourself in that situation. It can be hostile.
So how do you get around that though when you have said wife or said husband who's saying, my mom has invited us over for dinner, or my dad wants us to go here, and they're like, well, they don't like me. Well, every time we come around they treat me like this.
But wouldn't you go? Because that's the same scenario I'm placing about the daughter-in-law
I would
and the
go,
mother-in-law.
but I ain't talking about me. I'm going. Let me put my clothes on. I'm going. Yes, come on, Troy, let's go. And have been there. I mean,
Yeah.
relationships don't always start off like that. You have to build them. So I'm going because I just think that we have to build relationships. But for the person who's in a situation like that wherein they feel as though their in-laws don't treat them the best, like, and their husband, their wife wants them to, let's go. Do they go? Do they not go? Because then the consequence is it creates strife in the home. So how do we deal with that?
I mean, I think the partner whose parent it is, I think they should have a level of understanding that that your wife doesn't want to put herself in that situation to feel, actually, just to feel that way in someone's presence that doesn't necessarily want her there.
So then, do you have that tough conversation?
I think it should be had, yeah.
That's a tough conversation to have.
And sometimes we all know that difficult conversations have to be had in order for everybody to clearly understand. Now, from that difficult conversation, I would hope that, those persons that are making the individual feel that way would want to adjust that. But if they don't want to, and that's their choice, then the person that's being treated that way also has a choice.
So then who has the conversation? Who do you think have that conversation? Is it the child of the child has that, talk to their parent, or is it up to I guess the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law to have that conversation with the mother-in-law?
I think the couple should have it with the mother-in-law or father-in-law or both. I think because the individual that's being made to feel that way, they have the right to have the opportunity to express, how they're feeling and how they're being made to feel. So I think that's a great opportunity for them to express that and have, their opportunity to say, respectfully, what it is that they're feeling and why they are feeling that way.
That's good. What are you thinking, Sheila?
Same thing, that it should be a couple
Have it together.
having it together. Because then that said person that's being treated, when the daughter goes and talks to her parents, she might not, they're going to be, how can I say it? Because it's their daughter, they're not going to, no holds bar. Well, I don't like him because da-da-da, But if it's both of them, and both of them are expressing the same thing, then the parents are sort of like on the spot. Like, let's be honest, let's be truthful, but let's also be adult about this, and let's be adult enough to agree to disagree agreeably.
Right.
Like if it's something about my husband that you don't like, that my husband may disagree with, I disagree with it, but mom and dad, you both agree with it, then we need to each disagree agreeably. Like, we need to come to some conclusion, because then that gives the son the opportunity to say, how do you all think it makes me feel to hear you talk about my wife this way?
Right.
Like, Dad, would you like it if someone talked about Mom that way?
Now that actually happened. I had to address a similar situation like that with my mother-in-law. It's funny there, but it won't funny again. And as soon as I left, she called my husband and was like, "Do you know your wife said this and this to me?" He called me. I said, "I did tell her that." I said, "I actually did tell her that because I was defending my husband." But she was like, "You can't," pretty much was saying, "But that's my son." And I'm like, "But that's, that's my husband. And I feel like I should defend him." But the mom was like, "That's my son."
Right.
So I can kind of roll with it
That's
however I
so
want
like
to.
he was here with me first. before
Right,
you
pretty
came along.
much. So it puts you in a situation where it's like, well, with me, I've always, been bold enough to say what I think and what I feel. So for me, I just said it, but she was literally taken aback. But what came out of that was, afterwards, she was like, it kind of solidified the relationship, because it was, okay, I really like you because you was able to stand up to me concerning your husband, which is my son. So it kind of almost, we were early in our marriage, so it kind of blossomed the relationship a little bit. But it takes, you would literally have to be willing to own whatever backlash gonna come out of that.
Right.
Because you don't know if then, Troy could have then turned on me and been like, "Why you tell you don't talk to my mom, don't tell my mom." He could have went that direction, would have caused problems between us. But he just kind of laughed like, "I can't even believe you said that." I said, "Yeah, I told her that. Did. Guilty." He was like, "My mama?" "Yeah, your mama." I did. And it worked out. But hey, you got to tread that path lightly.
Yes.
You got to tread.
Because in-laws can make or break a marriage, and not just mother-in-law, father-in-law,
All of
sister-in-law, cousins, uncles, aunties.
Yeah.
Right.
They can. They have such a level of influence. And who gave them that?
I don't think anybody gave it to them. I think it's what we allow as the person that's in the relationship, what we allow to influence us. That's why it's so important that when you and your husband have a falling out, don't go telling your friends and everybody else about it, because when you and your husband make up,
they still mad.
They still mad. They still holding on.
Mad.
And all it takes is that drunk cousin Louie to come back and say,
Don't tell it.
"Don't tell it." Well, remember cousin Law when y'all was so and so, and you said you wish you would drop it.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. You have to be careful, but I think at some point though, in order for the in-law relationship to work, the children, have to be willing to establish the roles. Like, what is that going to look like? I think, from what I've experienced, you stumble into a role, but nobody's having a conversation about what those roles look like, which I think that's how hurt feelings, hurt in-laws, hurt wives, hurt husbands happen. And I think the reaction thereof is what creates the hostility. Because, truth be told, there is a shift in roles. But nobody's talking about it. That doesn't mean I'm still gonna come see you. We still gonna do lunch. We're still gonna do all those things, but it might be a +1, or I may do it less frequently. Those conversations have to be had, but I don't know anybody who's having those types of conversations.
And I think too, for the spouses, I don't think it's fair to say to your wife or your husband, you got to pick me or your mama,
Oh, no, it's not fair.
you know, or him, you got to pick me or your daddy. Excuse me, table for two, me and my daddy, because he was here first. Or table for two, my son and my mama. You don't want that kind of reaction. You don't give your significant other an ultimatum to pick. You know, they love you, they're there with you, you know, because I hear a lot about, well, they don't even defend me when their mother or father is saying things about me. You know, just because it's not being expressed then doesn't necessarily mean that it's not being expressed.
Right. I think sometimes, though, you want to hear it
Yeah,
to know, ooh, he got my back, or ooh, she got my back. You want to hear that.
Right.
Because it's hard to be disrespected and everybody else is in agreement.
right.
So true.
And nobody is saying a thing about it, and everybody just kind of looking hee and kick, clack, clack. No, and you're over there shrinking,
Right.
you know, in your seat. So yeah, you are looking for somebody, even if it's a distant cousin, come from around the back and say, knock it off, cut it out, stop it. You know, you're looking for something, but more importantly, going back to what you said earlier, that is a way to create for in-laws to create problems in the marriage, because then we're supposed to get in the car and ride home.
Like nothing ever happened.
Like, is that what we doing? We like, didn't nobody see that in there? Like, we're
And I think there's a way that you can address your dad. Why would you say something like that?
Correct.
Or mom, you know, don't do that.
right,
This is my wife. I love her.
right.
The mother of my children, your grandchildren. You know, there's a way to respectfully address your parents or even your in-laws
Yeah.
to that degree, you know. So I think it's about communication.
I think so too. I think so too. And also, I think going back to the theme of this, which is in-laws, they do matter. They do matter. We need both sides. We need our family from the marriage or the relationship, but we also need the in-laws as well, and we need everybody to be working together to make
Right.
all this work. They do matter. And when one is not working, it's going to create a rift in the other side of the fence. People say, oh, I don't have to talk to my in-laws, but that don't mean that doesn't bother your spouse.
Right.
You know, that is hurtful to your spouse. So we find a way to push through, or vice versa, whether it's, you know, sisters. You have some, they talk to the mom, but don't talk to the sister. That's still, that unit has to come together, because in-laws do matter.
Yes.
All right, y'all, thank you for joining us for another episode of Kingdom Women Talk, where we encourage, validate, and empower. Don't forget to comment and let us know, what do you think about, do in-laws matter? We believe they do. Tell us what you think. Don't forget to follow and subscribe and like our Facebook and YouTube page. Until next time, be blessed. Goodbye.
Bye.